Hello everyone. So for today, I'm going to show you my technique for painting petals with water droplets on them. And this is the photo that I've been painting from. I've done already most of this flower. I only need to do one more petal on this flower. And I'm going to go ahead and show you that petal during this video. Should give you a good idea of how I'm doing these petals in general. Now, before I ever paint anything really, I spend some time really studying the picture, because sometimes our brains, it's like we know that's a petal. We know those are drops of water, but sometimes you have to sit down and really focus and go, okay, what is it that makes it look like a petal? What is it that makes it look like a drop of water on the petal? So therefore, how am I going to paint it? And this is the petal I need to focus on right here this time around. And each of these petals has taken me like 30 minutes to an hour to do. So this is not a fast process. I'm not a fast painter, but regardless, just be aware this was a slow process for me. But I really focused on these water droplets, and I'm looking at them going, okay, what is it that makes it look like water? And one of the things I noticed about pretty much all of the droplets is that they're darker on one side and lighter on the other side. And they have a glare. And the glare usually is opposite from the lighter side of the droplet. Also, notice on that darker side, there's like some shading up here around that edge. And then it's light here, and the shadows are really important. They almost don't look like water droplets, and then you put the shadow in and it's like, oh, I see it now. So that's important. And another thing you'll notice as you look at the water droplets is a lot of times the water droplets work almost like a magnifying glass. And so they've been magnifying what's behind them. So you're still seeing the pattern of the flower, but you're seeing it bigger and a little bit distorted from what it is in the picture or in the original. So here's my painting, what I have so far. And you can see we're missing that petal right there that I need to work on. I went a little looser in the center than what the center actually looks like in the picture. You see, we have all these little tiny purple flowers and stuff. And honestly, I just didn't feel like putting that much detail into it. It wasn't the focus for me. And so I just kind of made it loose, and that worked for me. Okay, so we're doing this petal. I'm going to turn this so this petal is sort of horizontal across. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wet the petal, but I'm going to avoid the water droplets. I am going to paint where the shadow will eventually fall, but I'm not going to paint the water droplets first. I'm essentially going to paint the petal the way it looks behind the water droplets. Well, yeah, the petal where there are no water droplets. I'm going to paint that. And then I'm going to come back and do the water droplets afterwards. That's what I found worked for me in doing this particular painting. And to keep the petal looking blended, I prefer to work wet on wet. So, got to get that all wet down. I'll try to keep my head out of the camera shot. That would probably help. I'll use a little brush to go around some of this. Taking a number 2. Had something on it. It's all right, because that section's going to be pretty dark anyway. I need to get up here around this droplet and down here around that droplet. And then this tip has started to dry out. So I'm going to wet it a bit more. Little trick, if you want to make sure that everything is wet where you want it to be wet and there aren't any big puddles, look at your paper from the side and look for the glare off the water. Okay, now these petals move from yellow to orange to pink to purple to darker purple. And so what I want to do here is I'm going to start with some cadmium yellow on the tip. And carry that up a little bit. When I first looked at this photo, my brain was saying, okay, these are orange and purple leaves. But the real problem is if I just used orange and purple, number one, there really is yellow and pink in this petal if I look closely. But number two, if I used only orange and purple when mixed together make brown. So where the two colors came together, I would be getting brown. And that's not what I wanted. So I did not paint that way. All right, there are these veins that come through the leaf. And I'm going to almost make these disappear at some point, but right now I want to see them a little more clearly. And they don't have to be super precise like where they are in the other painting. I just want to kind of see where I'm placing them. And then I'm blending so that I move. I want to get like a gradient in these colors. I don't want them to just be like yellow, stop, then orange, stop. I got a little bit inside of my water droplet there, so I'm removing that because I wasn't being careful. Okay, so I'm blending that out. I'm going to move farther down the petal. I'm going to pick up some pink. This is, I'm sorry, that orange was Transparent Orange by Winsor Newton. This pink is Opera Rose. I think this is also a Winsor Newton paint, but I don't care what brand. Any Opera Rose is going to work for you just fine. I'm kind of planning to move to whole bean as I use up what I currently have. So it doesn't really matter to me what brand paint you use. Okay, blending out where I put those veins in some more. Okay, now the inside here is purple. I'm using Winsor Newton's Quin Violet because it's more of a reddish purple. And in a few places, I even added a little bit of Quin Red to the Quin Violet because I wanted, like over here, I wanted a really reddish tone to it. So I added that. This is a tricky one because this is going to end up looking like it's almost on the edge of the petal. And so I don't really even need much of an edge here because I'm going to put shadows there. But it does have like a little bit of darkening over here. Anyway, I shouldn't do that yet. All right, this is not dark enough comparing it to my picture, and this is way more pink over here. I've got like almost pastel-y pink going on, and this is like much more pink, so I'm going to come back in and get more of that going on. Again, you want to make sure that it blends into the next color. You don't want it to be a harsh transition. And I'm keeping more pink up here because that's just what it looks like in the picture to me, is that it stays pink on that upper edge more than it does down here. I find opera pink I often need a couple layers of. It doesn't always stay very well until I add some extra layers. Okay, so I'm just continuing to darken this as I like it. I'm going to add some more purple in here. My little number 2 brush, because what I want to do is kind of pull those bits out, but I want to keep it thin. I want more the hint of color coming out there than I want, yeah, like that. There's going to be a shadow right here that's going to cover up a lot of that, so I'm not really worried about that area. All right, pulling some more orange. I want these veins to stick out a little more. Okay, I'm mixing a little bit of Opera Rose with the transparent orange to get like a salmon-y color. I'm going to come in with some of that in this section. lifting up just a little bit. Okay. That's looking pretty good. This little bubble down here, since I got it wet, is it's got more color on it, but that's okay. See, I can just lift up a lot of that till I have a little round shape left, and it's all good. Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit more with this area here. Blend that in a little more. Picking up a little bit of neutral tint, and I'm mixing that with some of the Quin Violet so that I have like a really dark purple. And these edges are like really dark. That middle kind of has that red look to it. So in my palette, I have over to the side some of the Quin Violet mixed with Quin Red. I'm going to put a little bit of that in there just because I wanted to have that reddish color. I'd encourage you to step back, to look at your work from a little ways away, because sometimes we get stuck where we're looking at this painting really up close, and after a while it's like we don't even see it anymore. We're too close, and so you have to back up and look at it a little farther away. I'm taking just a little bit of Van Dyke Brown and a little bit of neutral tint, and there's a little bit of shading here on the end of the petal, because that part of the petal is turned down, like it's tipping down, and therefore it's getting shaded, and the shading is almost coming up to meet these little veins that we've got. Okay, you see how now that looks like it is tipped down instead of just sitting there? It's kind of cool. All right, now before you try to paint any of the dewdrops, make sure that the area right around it is dry. Okay, and right now that one, it's wet. If I turn to the side, I can still see the shininess around it. But this one, it's pretty dry around it. So I'm gonna work on that one first. And when I look at that one in the photo, oops, pull the photo over here, it's heavily yellow on this side, almost white here. Orange, a little darkening, and reserving that glare on that side. Okay, so that's what I see. But at the same time, I have to look at the pattern of the flower like I've made it on here, because I might not have made the stripes exactly the same. So I'm gonna think, okay, look, there's this vein that's gonna pass through the bubble. I need to see that still. That one's out of the way, so I don't even have to worry about that one. But I need to see that one vein for sure. So this side is yellow. Actually, that yellow feels a little contaminated. Let me pull some fresh yellow. Yellow gets contaminated really easy. So painting that yellow. And yellow over here, and then I'm going to make orange in the middle. It's a little more yellow than I want, so I'm just taking water. I'm cleaning my brush, and then I'm essentially pulling some of that up. Okay. This bubble is really light on this end. It's darker on this end. So I want to try to reflect that as I'm painting. Okay, so here's where that stripe comes through. And it doesn't have to be exactly the same because the water would distort the stripe anyway. That's my little glare spot I want to keep. And then my stripes coming down there like that. But I want it much lighter on this side than on the other side. Because again, the dewdrops are always lighter on one side and darker on the other side, at least that I've noticed. So you want a gradient of color going across it. Okay, and I'm going to blend some of that in. I'm going to make sure I keep that brightness on this side, so if I have to, I'm going to pull in some more color because this side needs to appear brighter. Okay. I just dropped a water drop. So if you do that, get a clean brush and you should be able to just soak it right up. Not the end of the world. For some reason, my number 2 brush likes to drop water on my paintings. It's evil like that. Okay, so that's my orange stripe. And again, I'm gonna blend just a little more there. All right, now I need to go up to this top area. And I want a little more yellow up here, but I want to blend that into the orange because there's orange up here too. Okay, blend it in. You shouldn't have any hard lines anywhere, except you should be able to see the outside line of the bubble. But even the outside line of the bubble, I go around and I soften that up. There are very few things in nature that are really going to have a hard line. Okay, so I've softened that up, and a little bit of stuff has gotten into my glare. I'm taking a clean brush, and picking up some of that. I would have softened the glare anyway, but it was getting in there a little more than I wanted. Okay, if it happens and you want that glare more white, then you just need to take some gouache. I have a little here on my palette that I can just add some water to real quick. So you can take a little gouache and you can just bring it into that glare and it'll whiten it up for you. But again, I'm going to go back when that dries and I'm going to actually pull that back a little bit. Okay. This top edge of the bubble has some shading on it. And the shading to me doesn't look like black shading on this one. It has more of a brownish tint to it. So I'm just taking some Van Dyke brown that has a tiny bit of neutral tint in it. And now I'm using my little bitty number 0 brush. And I'm putting in just a little line of color. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to shade that down onto my water droplet. Okay, see how that kind of defines it, gives it a little bit more of a round shape. And I'm going to just barely soften the outside edge as well, because again, you just don't have a lot of hard lines in nature. Okay, coming in there again, and now I'm going to soften up that glare a little bit more from where I put the gouache and spread it. so that it looks like a glare and not like just a white spot. And I've got this little tiny bit of smudge in here. Sometimes I have a little tiny pair of tweezers around, but I don't see my tweezers at this particular moment. So, come on. Ha, got it. Okay. Now I may continue. All right. Now, one of the things that really makes these bubbles is the shadow. On this one, the shadow is going down to the edge of the petal, and it is more of a brownish color to me. So I'm pulling up some brown, and to some extent it's probably brown because I'm seeing the orange and the yellow underneath the shadow. They're kind of peeking through. So pulling some orange and brown and just a little bit of neutral tint in there. And what I'm going to do, this is a number 2. I'm using this to put in kind of the shape of the shadow. I'm not going to totally fill it in because I'm going to wash off my brush, and then I'm going to use the paint that's already there to spread it. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to put a background on this painting or not. Okay. Now, as I've said a few times now, there are no hard lines in nature. So we're going to kind of fuzz out the edge. And I'm also going to do that just a bit up here. Okay. And then what you really have to do is step back, like back away from the painting and take a look at it and say, is that good? Or does it need something else? Sometimes I go, all right, I need a little darker shading here or there. Or maybe that shadow's too dark, I should take it down a notch. It's easy to adjust right now. I feel like I could use just a little more orange up here. Okay, leaving it alone for right now. Moving on to another of the little bubbles. We're gonna look at this one right here, the little bitty one. And this one's a fairly simple one. It's almost white on one side, very light at least. And it's got just a little bit of yellow and other colors in it. But what I'm seeing underneath mine is that it's more of it's kind of in the salmon and pink zone. So I'm going to make it darker on this side. I'm going to keep a little glare. Go in with another brush. I'm going to blend that over to the other side. Okay. And I kind of want this line to not be here. I want that to blend a little more. So I'm picking up just a bit more of my opera pink. I'm going to bring that right up to the edge of my little drop. Okay, this drop also has a shadow, and it's coming down like this. Okay, and I want just to distinguish the edge of the droplet on this side, put a little shadow there, and then I want that glare to be less obvious. Okay, done that one. And do this next one up here. On that one, we've got a lot of purple up here. It's almost white on this side, and there's a glare right up in the top. So, get some purple. It's fairly bright purple up in this top part. And a lot of times I'm noticing the color in the bubble, in the dewdrop, will be even brighter than what is on the rest of it. I think that's just because of that amplification effect of the water droplet. It's just bringing out even more color. Getting some pink, bringing that down here. I want to keep this side really light. Trick is to keep that bright color over there without, and to still have a gradient, but not to lose the light on the other side. So that can be a little difficult. Okay, bringing a little more purple in here. Blending those two together. Okay. Now my glare, I want to go over it lightly, but I don't want to lose it, so try not to lose it. All right, this one also has a shadow, and I'm actually going to shadow partially where this is because I want this a little more round. So this shadow to me looks a little darker, a little more black, so I just added a little more neutral tint to my Van Dyke brown. And I'll come in here with this 0 brush and create that shadow. It actually comes up around here a little bit. know what I'm going to do next by now. I'm going to sit and fuzz that out a little bit so that it's not like a hard line. Shadows aren't hard lines, you know, the edges of them are blurry and they often have kind of like a half shadowed area before you get to the rest. Okay, comparing that to there, it's looking pretty good. I feel like in the picture one that there's a little bit more darkness up here. So adding a little bit of that. Whoops, sorry, didn't mean to bump that again. Okay, one more bubble. It's the biggest one. All right, so I'm gonna get my bigger brush to use for this bubble. This one's gonna have a lot of pink and some purple in it because mainly this is in that purple and pink section. I'm gonna start with the pink. Again, this is Opera Rose. My Opera Rose has a little bit of orange mixed in with it, so I'm going to take a minute here and get more pink out. Here we go. All right, so there's a glare up here. This side is considerably lighter than this side, so that's what I need to keep myself aware of as I'm painting it. And these stripes that are down here, we want to see come out in this to some extent. Now I happen to know this purple will overlay the pink really well, so I don't have to worry about like not painting where the purple will be. Okay, and there's pink. You see that pink there? I'm kind of going, okay, there's going to be more of a pinky area here, but it's going to get lighter on this side. Remember, the stripes are probably, if you're doing it right, they're probably not going to completely match up because you've got that magnification effect going on the bubble. Okay, I'm going to get some more purple here. I'm going to start putting some purple in. Again, I'm just trying very hard to keep it so that this side is vibrant and this side is very washed out. Now get a little smaller brush and blend a bit. there's like a purpley area along the top of this. Which is good because it gives like a darker color to the edge, built-in shading. Okay, now there's a little area here, black. Right. Now this is a little more white than I wanted, although if you look at a number of these, you've got that whiteness there. That's okay. But in this particular painting, I'm seeing this one, this looks warmer to me. So I'm gonna warm this up with a bit of the orange over here. So it still looks lighter, but not in as much of a white sense. Yeah, I like that more. All right, I'm gonna put the shadow on it because that'll help me to see this a little better. So I've still got this Van Dyke brown with some neutral tint. Ended up with a little more neutral tint than I wanted there, so I'm adding some more Van Dyke brown. And looking at where this shadow goes, it's coming under the bubble here. And it's coming from out there. Kind of like that. And this is one of those shadows that right up next to the bubble, there's a little area where the light is shining right through the water, like this one, and it's making that little lighter area of the shadow. So I'm going to try to show that. Get my tiny brush here, because what I want it to be is that this bubble is resting like on the edge of this leaf. Not leaf, it's petal. You know what I mean? And see, it's like this little shape is caused by it sitting down in like a little groove here in the petal. Okay, we need to soften the shadow. I like to wait just a minute before doing that, before softening it, just to give it a little bit of dry time so that I don't pull away too much of the paint. Okay. I want this top part, pulling my tiny brush. I want this top part to go up a little more. Okay. Back to my number 2. And I'm going to then pull this color right up to the edge of the bubble. But I want this little area right next to it to just be a little tad bit lighter of a shadow than the rest of it. Because we want to see the light passing through the bubble. Okay, now this glare, we want it to be less obvious. Get rid of the hard line right there and just kind of blend it a little bit. Whoops! And then throw your brush down. No, not really. And then I'm just looking at it and going, okay, is that good? I don't know. Is it good? Tell me. Dropped a water droplet on again. I'm good at doing that. Always with my number 2 brush. Okay, I think I want to blend a little more of this purple into the pink on this side. It's a little too pink for this portion, although, see, this bubble is going to be covering up the portion of this flower that would have the most pink. And then it's like by the time we get the bubble gone, we've moved to the more orangey part of the flower. That's why it has so much pink in it. Okay. Now, encourage you strongly to back up and look at your painting from a little ways away. Okay? Most people are not doing this to your painting like you might be while you're painting. They're not going to be 3 inches away from the painting. For most people, they're going to put it on the wall and they're going to be at least a minimum of, you know, 2 or 3 feet away from it. And so look at it from 2 or 3 feet away and then decide, okay, is that good? What do I need to add? I'm still thinking on whether I want a background on this or not, but I think I'm reasonably happy about it at this point. I will show you one more thing while I'm on here. I have a couple of little spots down here. You can see those little dark areas. I just managed to either drop paint there at some point, who knows what. So if you have a magic eraser and a little bit of water, you can get in there and it should take out those spots. See? Magic eraser is great for a little cleanup at the end, for if you had anywhere like that. Because if you're like me, at some point in time while you're painting, you either drip water where you didn't mean to drip water, or you drop something on the painting, or who knows what. But we all do it. It's okay, and you can clean it up. One thing I'm a little annoyed about with this one is when I was doing my pencil sketch, I have a couple little marks up here that are beyond, yeah, they didn't get covered up. But looking at it, and if I were to mat this, an 8.5 by 11 mat, I could mat it just like that, and it would cover up those little marks just right there, and then I wouldn't see them at all, and I could be happy because I would not see the little marks. You see those right there? But just like that, and it's all better, no marks, and I think that's actually a very pretty composition inside the mat. So it would go in an 8.5 by 11 frame anyway. Now if I'm going to make prints of this, I can take my image, my picture, and then I can go in Photoshop and I can take those out, and so I could size it however I want to make prints. That's the nice thing about making prints. All right, hope you enjoyed this. Hope that it answered some questions on painting dewdrops, and if you have any more questions, please let me know.